In Uruguay, Parliament approved a bill to create a water emergency fund in view of the scarcity of drinking water. In Austria, the 8th International Seminar of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries kicked off under the theme Towards a Sustainable and Inclusive Energy Transition. In Palestine, thousands attended the funeral of the young man killed by Israeli attacks in the Jenin refugee camp. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Uruguay, the Chamber of Senators, after a voting process, approved a law to create the Water Emergency Fund, which aims to face the hydrological crisis the country is going through. Following the initiative taken by the Minister of Economy and Finance, Azucena Arbeleche, this plan will be a tool through which at least $12 million a month will be made available, which will ensure the supply of the vital liquid to more than 500,000 people in vulnerable situations. Also, as a contingency for the situation, more than 90,000 senior citizens, retirees and pensioners will receive money each month to guarantee access to 2 liters of water per day. Finally, after a meeting of senators' representatives, they agreed to evaluate and accelerate processes for the construction of the dam of the Casupa stream and thus consider measures to address the critical context faced by the affected departments. Uruguay's water crisis is intensifying. Freshwater reserves are running low, and more than half of the country is not receiving drinking water through the pipes. Our colleague Mateo Grilla with the details.
The severe drought affecting Uruguay is leaving images that some time ago were hard to imagine. Where once there were huge freshwater reservoirs, now there are only cracks in the earth, the remains of trees and sediments. The water reserves in Paso Severino, where the dam that supplies drinking water to the country's two most populated cities, Canelones and the capital Montevideo, is located, are reaching 1%, and the fresh water will run out within hours.
We came with the family to really see how it was because we didn't believe it. One sees it on TV and says, no, it can't be. We came to see it and make sure that it is true, what we're going through, what is coming. And sometimes we waste too much water and see the situation of this place to what it has reached. From the level it had before, and now today we have almost nothing. It will be difficult for the people.
The metropolitan area of the country has been without drinking water for weeks, and within hours will only be able to use the water for sanitary purposes. The agony has been dragging on for days, and the rains are not coming. Under normal conditions, the water from this place used to supply almost the entire south of the country without problems. According to experts, rainfall levels have been well below normal for the past 3 years.
It has been 38 months of rainfall negative index. In some places it hasn't rained, and in some other places it has rained well below normal. When I say far below normal, it means that out of the 1,400 millimeters that it should rain in Uruguay, in many cases not even 200 millimeters were registered in each region.
The current drought is the worst of the last 100 years, and the consequences are plain to see. Many people look back on their memories and cannot believe what they see today.
This is below the level of what the river was without the reservoir. That is, imagine if you see the old bridge there when there was no reservoir, it means that the river would be at least 2 meters below. And today, the bridge is practically dry. It is far below that level, below what the river was without the reservoir. In other words, today there is no reservoir.
It is terrible, terrible, and it is pitiful. I did not know this place, and from what he says, it justifies everything he said about it being an ecological disaster, or I do not know what to call it. Let's hope that it rains a lot, and that the water accumulates and returns to normal, because it is really pitiful. It is pitiful.
This is the old bridge of Paso Severino. It has been submerged for 40 years under an enormous flow of water that ran through this area, which is a branch of the Santa Lucia River. The effects of climate change are becoming more and more noticeable and are hitting Uruguay hard.
Mateo Grise, teleSUR, Uruguay.
Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro led the civic military parade for the 212th anniversary of the signing of the Act of Independence and the Day of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces. President Maduro pointed out during a speech that Venezuela is forging permanent independence under a scheme that defends peace and the right to coexist. The head of state praised the unity, cohesion, and clarity of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces in keeping the national territory free from empire's boots. Nicolás Maduro remembered Supreme Commander Hugo Chavez for strengthening the purely Venezuelan military doctrine that does not depend on foreign impositions.
We could say it's the day of the people in arms. It's the day of the right and perfect civilian-military integration. This is what happened in the greatest moments of our history 200 years ago, specifically on July the 5th, when 212 years ago, the Founding Fathers took the definitive step. They said, "Here we are." And with courage and love, they solemnly declared the absolute independence of the United Provinces of Venezuela from any empire on earth.
In Colombia, at least 6 people were injured after the explosion of an unknown device in the vicinity of the police station in the municipality of Bucaramanga. According to authorities, the injured are police officers who were at the site of the explosion. Officials detailed that in addition to injured, several vehicles were affected. Local authorities rejected the action, calling it a presumed terrorist attack, which adds to those that have occurred in several cities in the country in the last few days.
We have immediately deployed all our police forces, intelligence, criminal investigations, specialties, and police modalities in coordination with other authorities in order to locate, prosecute, and bring before the competent authority the persons who have committed this act. We are also carrying out all our investigation, patrolling and control measures in the metropolitan area of Bucaramanga.
At least 27 people were killed on Wednesday after a passenger bus plummeted into a ravine in the Mexican state of Oaxaca. According to the state prosecutor's office, 17 others were injured in the crash and taken to different hospitals of the region for treatment. The government entity said an investigation has been launched into the cause of the accident, with early indications suggesting mechanical failure. According to the Civil Protection Agency, at least 6 of the injured were unconscious and in serious conditions when they were rushed to the hospital. Authorities informed that the bus had left Mexico City on Tuesday night and was heading for the town of Santiago de Yosondúa. Deadly road accidents are common in Mexico, usually due to high speeds, poor vehicle conditions, or driver fatigue. Let's take a short break now, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll be able to find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. We close to defend price stabilization. The 8th seminar of the Organization of All Exporting Countries progresses in Austria. The participants of this convention have agreed on the need to reduce production as a measure to maintain market stability, as part of the challenges facing the oil and energy industry to mitigate the effects of climate change. During his inaugural speech, the Secretary General of OPEC, Haitham Al-Ghais, called for an energy transition and said that sustainable means balancing the needs of current and future generations. During his inaugural speech, the Secretary General of OPEC, Haitham Al-Ghais of Kuwait, highlighted the role that oil plays in life and called for an energy transition, recalling that energy sustainability means balancing the needs of current and future generations.
And inclusivity are terms that are repeated so often. There's a risk we lose sight of their fundamental meaning. The concept of sustainability is essentially about balance. It relates to how we fulfill the needs of our current generations without compromising the needs of future generations, while ensuring a balance between the 3 pillars of sustainability: economic viability, environmental protection, and social equity.
OPEC Secretary General also stressed that pursuing technologies that allow for an emissions-free future is one of the key issues to be discussed at the seminar.
Millions of people depend on our commodity, oil, for daily life. This is an inescapable reality that warrants respect. That is why OPEC pursues market stability. Of course, as an industry, we want to ensure that we have an emissions-free future. Harnessing technologies that can do this will be one of the predominant themes of this seminar. However, oil is too central and fundamental for life just to stop. We recognize the reality and constantly strive to reduce our environmental footprint. We can all move towards a sustainable and inclusive energy transition.
The President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, called on the member states of the movement of non-aligned countries to fight against neocolonialism. At the opening of a ministerial meeting of this alliance formed by 120 member countries, Aliyev recalled that the movement of non-aligned countries was created as a result of the decolonization process. Therefore, they both fight with determination against neocolonialism and contribute to its total eradication. In this context, the President of Azerbaijan denounced that one of the countries that still continues the policy of neocolonialism is France. Aliyev accused the European country of racism, genocide, and interference in the affairs of other countries. Italian authorities confirmed on Tuesday that the ship of Doctors Without Borders rescued 196 migrants in 4 operations, including 47 minors and 16 women, and designated them to the port of Marina di Carrara in northern Italy. The arrival of migrants continues, although it has slowed down in the last days, which has allowed the reception center on the Italian island of Lampedusa to be emptied, where there are currently about 430 migrants after more than 3,000 over the past weekend. On Tuesday, the Italian Interior Minister Matteo Piantedosi and the European Commissioner for the Interior Ylva Johansson visited the island of Lampedusa, a point of arrival for migrants coming from North Africa. Johansson pointed out that Italy is one of the nations most affected by the continuous arrival of irregular migrants, acknowledging this is not only an Italian challenge, it is also a European challenge. In China, the Premier Li Qiang on Wednesday met with a delegation led by Yohei Kono, President of the Japanese Association for the Promotion of International Trade in Beijing. Both countries celebrate the 45th anniversary of the signing of a treaty of peace and friendship between China and Japan. Li Qiang said the two countries should always abide by the principles set out in their 4 political documents between China and Japan, safeguard the basis for the development of bilateral relations, view each other's development objectively and rationally, and implement the political consensus that they should be cooperative partners and not threats to each other. Meanwhile, Kono said his nation is committed to promoting Japan-China economic and trade exchanges, enhancing friendship, and supporting China's development, and is willing to maintain the spirit of mutual respect and trust. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel, teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, sub-stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Thousands of Palestinians attended the funerals of the young men who were killed by Israeli attacks in the Jenin refugee camp. The funeral procession departed from the Jenin hospital, where the bodies were kept. Thousands of citizens accompanied 9 coffins all the way to the cemetery, where the victims were buried. 2 of the 12 dead from the Israeli raid were buried on Tuesday. When the army withdrew from Jenin late Tuesday, much of the crowded city was left charred and in rubble from the incursion that displaced at least 3,000 residents of the adjacent refugee camp, a tiny area that is home to 18,000 people. Palestinians returned to the refugee camp in the city of Jenin and discovered severe damage to infrastructure. We have lost everything, they comment, and blame the Israeli armed forces, who launched a 2-day military operation in which 12 Palestinians were killed.
The army intruded and they did not know how to deal with the youth. They bombarded them with missiles from several directions. As the guys managed to put pressure on the army, the youth returned with high morale, and they will come back even stronger than before.
They used planes during the incursion, bombarding civilians in their homes and terrifying the population. All the camp's institutions have been destroyed, as well as the main roads, side streets, and even mosques were severely damaged. There is no hope. The young people at the camp look to the future and see no hope. There are no projects. Israel has destroyed everything that could be built there. There is no two-state solution. There is no hope for political solutions, neither from the authorities' side, nor from the occupation side. They have destroyed everything.
Kenya is postponing the reopening of its borders with Somalia after recent attacks on the soil attributed to radical Al-Shabaab rebels. Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki announced that the phased reopening of the border posts of Mandera, Lamu and Garissa will not take place as announced in May. The decision comes after the death of 5 civilians and 8 police officers in separate incidents near the border last month, blamed on the Al-Qaeda-affiliated group. The border was officially closed in October 2011 due to attacks by Al-Shabaab, who have been waging an insurgency against the federal government in Mogadishu for more than 15 years. The two countries had announced in July 2022 their intention to reopen the border during talks between Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Somali counterpart, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, but this never materialized. In South Sudan, President Salva Kiir pledged that elections previously postponed and now scheduled for December 2024 will go ahead as planned and that he would run for president. Kiir is the only president South Sudan has known since he led the country to independence from Sudan in 2011. The world's youngest country has since gone from crisis to crisis, held together only by a fragile government of national unity. Nearly 400,000 people perished during a 5-year civil war until President Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar signed a peace agreement in 2018. South Sudan is one of the world's poorest countries, despite significant oil reserves. No other candidate has yet declared his candidacy, but according to observers, the current vice president surely will. The head of the UN's refugee agency, Filippo Grandi, urges Sudan's neighbors to keep their borders open despite security worries, as the number of people fleeing the conflict tops 500,000. Grandi warns that the 2-month-old war threatens to spread insecurity to the fragile nation's bordering Sudan.
Many of these neighboring countries are very fragile, and there is also an element of insecurity that risks spreading as a result of this situation. My appeal to all the neighboring countries is to say, I understand your security concerns, but please keep your borders open, because these people are really fleeing for their lives. Sudan has gone through a lot of instability, but there has never been a war in Khartoum. So these are people who had never experienced conflict, for whom the fact that their flat has been devastated, looted, often bombed, has been a traumatic experience, a terrible shock. And you can see it, you can sense it in what they say. All this has to stop, because it could have immeasurable consequences in the region and beyond.
The high UN official also urged the international community, especially the rich countries, to do a bit more in humanitarian aid to deal with the refugee crisis.
If you look at what the international community, the rich countries, spend on their military, I'm not saying that military spending isn't necessary. That is not my field, and I understand the logic. But humanitarian aid is a tiny, tiny fraction of all that. I can't believe we can't make a bit more of an effort, and not just from traditional donors. We need more humanitarian resources from the Gulf states, for example, who are already doing a lot, but I think they can do more. Everyone needs to make an effort.
We have come to the end of this news briefing, and you can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.